And so when you see what's happening now, and some people say this is the worst it's ever been, do you see that as just the natural cycle of humanity? And when you look back to 1968 or these other points in time, do you just say, no, this is just something that humanity actually does to itself? It's just the natural evolution of the younger generation, the older generation, new ideas?
I do. I know. I see it as just a really organic cycle of how people establish themselves in the world and how they achieve an adulthood in a world that hasn't given us a lot of really clear channels to adulthood right now. We don't really have a frontier you can go into to kind of, try to establish yourself tabula rasa. So we have to reinvent the frontier by kind of creating these war zones. Um, so I don't see it as the big upset travesty that other people might.
And do you think we also have a tendency to forget and rewrite our own past? I think I heard you commenting recently that when you saw some of the protests in Portland, you were like, what are these kids doing? And then I think one of your friends reminded you that you used to do this too, Chuck. Do you think sometimes the older generation forgets that they once were young and either did these things or thought these things too?
Oh, one thing that kills me is my father worked for the railroad. He was a brakeman, and he would get us up in the middle of the night and put us in a pickup truck, my two sisters, my brother, and I. And he would drive us through the desert for hours until we came across an enormous train accident, a freight train that had been derailed. And we would be there with all the other kind of subsistence families in the area, and we would loot the train. We would take whatever was being shipped in the boxcars that were busted open, and all these things that were just in disarray. And I forget about that. And the other day I was kind of pissing and moaning about the looting in Chicago and the looting in Minneapolis, the looting in Portland. And a friend of mine just kind of leaned in and said, you did that. You did that as a kid, as a teenager. So you really can't say too much about people who are doing it now. So yeah, there is a big aspect of forgetting our own lives when we start to criticize other people's.
Yeah, and even forgetting how we felt when we were teenagers. Like, I can still remember when I was a teenager thinking, I can't trust anybody over 30 and probably nobody over 25. Like, they don't get it. They'll never get it. I still remember having weird thoughts like that. And I think it's hard for us to really understand how they're feeling in so many ways.
I don't think you get over that now until your late 20s and your early 30s. And at that point, you kind of realize that you're not going to have the power and the vitality of youth much longer. And you're going to need to transfer to a different form of power. And you try to do that through education, you try to do that through connections and networking. But youth is going to pass for you. And at that point, you do need to rely on other people.